Welcome to The Life Engineer with Matty J. He unpacks and interviews guests to share the tools, components, and software that's needed to build a life and mindset by design versus one of default.
Welcome, Zoe Jones. Well, I've got my sheet here. I'm gonna list it out. So we know each other from school, from friends, from neighbours, and our kids go to the same school, and we work together at Think and Believe, and we've been coaching, or you've been coached by me.
Yeah.
Which goes back a while. So I'm introducing you as a previous client, life coaching client. So we're just going to list through a few things to talk about. So we've got there's the analogies of gardening that we know about from the Think and Believe side of business and yoga. So let's go through to the coaching side of stuff. We started off, walk and talks was your... I think we've only ever done walks and talks, have we? Have we had any coaching sessions?
We did have a couple, I think, where I don't know, we didn't have any in your cabin, I don't think, but we did have a couple, I think, over, like, initially. I don't know if it was would it have been over the phone? I can't remember now.
Don't know. Abbey Cake Shop, Starbucks.
Yeah, so we had, but predominantly the walk and talk.
Yeah, we used to meet by the alley, through the alley, talk about what. Yeah, sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? I'll meet you by the alley in 10.
Yeah.
And then, cut through the alley and summarise what has gone on. Yeah. And then get straight into it. And then we used to have a route down by the Lees, and it was probably about an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's probably a good hour. Yeah, doing that. So, but I used to like it because it never felt you felt very relaxed. You were just walking, and it sort of took your mind off the fact you were just walking. It's, as you say, what it is, walking and talking. So it was very relaxed, and it was easy to just, it was just easy and relaxed, really.
I think sometimes, depending on what the sessions are, it's good for that movement. I think walking anyway, like if I went for a run this morning at 4, if I want to think, that's what I do, because that movement forwards, I think it's like that momentum.
Yeah, and being out in the open as well, it's just gives you that, it feels like you've got that room to breathe as well and to think.
Yeah, and we're lucky we've got the Lees right down
the
road. So life coaching, it's funny, my sister interviewed me the other day, and she said when I said I was going to be a life coach, she just laughed. Because it is interesting, I think people think me as a life coach or what life coaching is. So what did you think life coaching was, and what do you see it as after?
I'm quite an open-minded person, so that wasn't an issue. But I thought coming to you, I would explain sort of what I wanted to get from it, sort of issues and things like that, and you would say you need to do this and this to get this result, and I would go away and do that and be like, that's brilliant, he's told me what to do. It wasn't like that at all, because now I know that it's you asking me questions, and sometimes I didn't realise they were questions you was asking me, but you were getting me to think about things myself and coming up with the answers myself. So you was getting me to dig a bit deeper and questioning why. It wasn't just, I feel like this and here's the remedy. It was, why do you feel like this? And sometimes it wasn't even related to what I thought it was. It was a lot deeper. So that's what it was. So it's no way you telling me what to do and I just go away and do it.
I think people get mixed up with consultancy and mentoring. So if I wanted to mentor, that this is what I have done, which is mentoring. A consultant is like, do this and you'll get that. And I think that's what people think it is. It's funny, I joke with a lot of clients that I actually do not a lot, because the work is, and I like that analogy of the catalyst for a caterpillar.
Yeah.
It does nothing, just holds that space. And that's sometimes that changing room, that mirror is being held up for the bits you think's all right and actually aren't
Yes.
all right, or the bits you think are shit and actually are.
Yeah,
excellent.
exactly. So yeah, it's just a different perspective of looking at it. Because I think when you're going through something, or you've got an issue, or you want to progress at work, you're looking at it very sort of tunnel vision. It's just, well, I want that, and you're not taking it back to the start and thinking, right, well, what do I need to do to get that step by step and break it down?
And I think that's why I like the analogies. So there's a story that I always talk about, the man that's trapped in the corner because he's pinned in the corner by a snake, and he's just shitting himself and he's frozen. And then someone turns the light on and he sees it's just rope. Sometimes that shift is like, oh, I thought I was, so were you. I thought I was too sensitive. I know one thing we spoke about.
Yeah.
When actually that's when we talk about flipping it, that become a superpower. It just needed that protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think using the analogies, which is what I do. One, it makes me. I remember I've been in meetings before with like architects and MDs and consultants, and they've been talking about stuff that I don't understand. And I said it to them before. Can you explain all of that like I was 6? And they laugh. And then they say it, which they should have said in the first place. Oh, well, you got to do. And I'm like, well, if you'd have said it like that, I'd have understood it. But you made it sound so complicated. So I often feel like I'm dumbing it down to make me understand it. But when you see that, so like the boundaries in a garden, that sensitivity, which is something that's excellent, it's only excellent if you protect it.
Yes.
Like a laser beam.
Yeah.
Those components are powerful, but still need to be. And I use the same thing in boxing with like keeping a jab out and having that space that some people can come in and mess up your garden, or you can put a fence up.
Yeah, or you can have your shield.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, my fuck it shield.
But that was so. It's funny. I've just ordered an intro for the podcast, and in it, I've got a description of unpacking. I think I put unpacking the components, the tools or the software to engineer a life by design, and that component of that tool. So you created a shield because protection of that sensitivity was something we unpacked in the session.
Yeah.
And I think on a level, this affects everyone in different ways on how outside in, that what people will think, or we talk about weeds versus flowers in the garden, and we joke in my house that I'm borderline because Sharon has to manage me.
You're a borderline weed.
But she still has me. I'm still here. But she has to, and comes out sometimes. But that other people affecting you coming in, that whether that's true or not, that's perceived people coming in and taking the mickey or actual, that boundary is there to protect that mindset when you're cultivating a mind by design.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So what were some of the things that you brought to, if you're happy chatting about it, brought to the coaching that you went through?
Well, you've touched on the sensitivity. I think I went through, I'm a sensitive person, and through life and through sort of, I presume, like comments from people saying, oh, you're too sensitive. And I always saw that as a negative. And it was like, why am I, and I used to beat myself up, why am I too sensitive, etc. Oh, it's a bad thing. And then when I had my coaching with you and I dug deeper, I realised that actually it's a big positive in my life, because there's a lot of people that, because of the way I am, and not because I'm not crying all the time or anything, but because I have got that sensitive side, it then shows, I think, with how I care about friends and things like that. So that's why probably people do like me as well, because of that. And so then it was a case of shielding that and being proud of the fact that I am sensitive, and that has changed me a lot because I've no longer beat myself up over it. And if anybody does think I'm too sensitive or whatever, that's up to them. It's fine. It just means that maybe they are different to me, but we're all different and we don't all want to be the same. So that was that. But another thing was I was going through a shift. I've got 2 boys and they're getting older. So it was...
Men now, aren't they?
Yeah, one of them, 18. If you class 18 as being a man, then one of them is. But losing that, like, as they get older, sort of, you go through stages of their lives and everything. And like from when they're a baby and it's like that walking stage, it's wow, excellent. And you're so proud that they're going through that stage because they still need you. They still rely on mum. They still want mum. But as they get older and they venture out more and become more independent, you sort of lose... I felt anyway that I was losing... They didn't need me. They always will need me. I realise that now, but just in a different way. And that was... And I felt like I'd lost my identity then. Sort of suddenly it was like, my boys don't need me so much. Who am I? Sort of, I know who Zoe the mum is. I know who Zoe the wife is. I know who Zoe the daughter is, but who is Zoe? So it was like working on who I am again as well, and trying to find and rediscover who I am at this stage in my life.
So I think that there's 2 things that are similar there. So that sheet there, I've got this Coaching for True Colours, and we use this in the Walking Man Can workshops where people talk about the narrative. And I've been on courses where they've called it, so this book I'm reading at the moment is excellent, calls it Egoic Mind. The scripts is one thing, Shut the Duck Up, all sorts of the devil, all sorts of stuff that you've got this. So these have got, too old, too fat, not enough, don't fit in, don't deserve this, not qualified, not working hard enough, judged by someone else's expectation, lazy, not normal. All of that shit narrative, bit like the weeds in the garden. And then all I do is, so that Coaching for True Colours is the truth underneath it. And you can't cheat some of it. I think it's finding the truth. Are you lazy? Because if some people are lazy, it's working out, well, what's the truth in that,
Exactly.
And then that narrative, I'm too sensitive, in a negative term, if flipping it changes the tonality of everything. And a lot of, I think, what definitely with mindset, it's a case of cleaning up and getting back to. So when we look at kids when they're young, they're happy, that everyone look at me. I've been coaching people, so videos that people doing, presenting and developing their businesses using videos, but they don't want to get in front of a camera. You look at a young kid, it's like they only want to talk when the camera's on me. Are you videoing me? But where does that go? And a lot of what I think coaching does is helps just to get back to. It's not a case of getting, it's actually just getting back to Zoe. And that, I think that narrative starts getting diluted down quite early, especially now with social media and stuff, that you lose yourself in what you think should be like the
yes. I mean, social media is very positive on one hand, but there is a hell of a lot of negatives towards it. And I don't think it is more women that suffer with that. I don't know, because I think there's a lot of men that, there's a lot now of pictures on social media, Instagram, of even men with, they're doing their exercises and they've got ripped bodies and stuff like that. And I think men are just as sensitive to it as women. Like, we see all these airbrushed photos and think, oh my God, and look at our own bodies and think, I don't look like that. What's wrong with me?
I think it's definitely, I think it's just different software that you see things differently. A bit like the Android phone and the Apple phone. It's the same thing with men. It's funny, I was talking to someone the other day about, I was chatting to this guy. We was on site, it was a few years ago. We was on the site working on some lifts, and I was talking to the site agent, and we started talking about, he done a yoga retreat for men, And he was like a Marine type guy. He looked real like just come out of the SAS or something. And I was chatting to him, and he takes these guys off and does like yoga retreats where they chat and talk around a campfire. And he was talking, and we was talking, but we was doing it in the offices where you had all of the engineers and construction guys sitting. And he was talking about how he uses this bowl to put his finger around to get people centered. And I've never really understood it. Although I've done yoga, I've never really got into the whole namaste side of stuff. And
about
how he uses it to get centered, brings it back. I used the plumb bob in coaching about getting back to a point. And it was funny because when we went out, I remember my brother saying, like, everyone was in there listening to you sounding like a couple of gays. Because they was all, but it was a building site mentality. It was all like, what are they used to talking about their sensitive feelings for?
Yeah. But I bet you there was lots of them, though, that probably a high proportion of them that inside was relating to some of it, but they can't show it because of the environment they're in.
Yeah, I think a lot of, so you said you was open to coaching. A lot of my first stages of coaching is getting people open, is finding that space where you're comfortable to be open.
Yeah.
Because it's a vulnerable space. And this is where I link it to the boxing. I did that white collar boxing a couple of years ago, and you don't appreciate till you've gone through it how vulnerable you feel with being in that space of sparring. And I like that analogy because sparring is where the work is in boxing if you want to get better. I could spend hours on the bags and the pads, but it doesn't teach you to be used to that environment where it's so fearful, and so it's just that, and that can be exhausting. And it's a little bit the same in coaching. In business, I talk about it like a sparring session. That in it, we'll finish the session and you'll find out where you're strong and you're weak, and then we can have a hug and say thanks and go. There's no hardship, but you'll know where to work on.
Yeah.
And it finds the work, and that's coming back to that truth.
And when you're in the coaching, when you're peeling back the layers, you do like I don't know if you remember, but I remember now one of our coaching sessions, we must have done it either over video or over phone, because when we was peeling back, I did feel very vulnerable and I did get upset on one of them. But it's allowing yourself to feel, it felt raw and stuff, but that's part of the healing process and moving forward.
So I think what I was talking about before was because it's vulnerable, men don't feel comfortable being that open. Whereas I think women find it more comfortable, but not completely, but they're used to being open to a certain extent.
Yes.
But it's interesting that going back to that gardening analogy, that what we unpack with a lot of that narrative is the roots, because it goes back to a point. I remember I've coached someone recently, they literally remember the day where that seed was planted, and that affected them talking in public forever. And that was talking in a professional sense. So there was issues with business where they weren't communicating effectively because of this point, and it was a shift in schools. Other people where they've gone from different schools to public schools, and there's points where you can say, well, that's where it was seeded. I went on a course for a week, and I spent about a day and a half just crying, unpacking, that I realised a lot of mine, like the garden, was an inherent thing that my dad had.
Right.
And that's where the issue was. So it wasn't like a certain point. There were points that I could pick, but it actually went back to stuff that was inherent. Like when you buy your house, there's a certain landscape or trees that are already there, a bit like that mindset, and you can cultivate that or not. But getting to the point, it goes back to when you do dig up the weeds and you go, it's a bit like root treatment at dentists. I've always said that I work on energy or emotion. That's the two things. And energy is like, you want to get up and punch me in the face. Or emotion, it's funny. I had 2 female clients in the same week sent me an email saying wanker, because one had been pushed to learn to use a computer to get a job. She had been homeless, but it was uncomfortable, and she went on a course, etc., etc. But we joked that would be the first email she would send.
Yes.
Because she was being pushed or she was being stretched. And the other one was a woman that was doing videos, and I think it was being pushed to that. But and again, it was a joke. But that comes back from that energy, and the emotion from going back to the roots of what's been there. And I've done it in the garden before. You think a root's here, and then you actually peel back, and it's right the other side of the pond, but it's gone all the way through. And it's the same in life. That sensitive thing was peeled back to points where you could say, well, that's where we started watering it, or that's where it was planted. And probably being sensitive, it was a thing that you've inherited.
Yeah.
It's just where the narrative changes from it not being so good, because you probably felt emotion because you were sensitive to certain things.
Yeah.
And didn't have the tools to do it. But you get that energy or emotion when you go back and realise,
No, definitely.
That it's not a negative, maybe,
No, definitely.
So going back to, we used so takeaways from the coaching. What are some of the things that you think you got from it, or shifts or changes that you unpacked?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, coming away from the coaching, we've touched on sensitivity. So and the shield thing. So with me, it was like, if I ever felt, and not necessarily just with the sensitivity, if I ever feel now that I'm in a situation where I can feel uncomfortable or uneasy, or even intimidated or whatever, I get this, I mean, I don't hold my hands up, but I get this imaginary shield, and it's like, if they shoot whatever at me, I can protect myself. So that was one thing. So I've sort of learned how to protect myself a bit more, and to not be so hard on myself. So that was that. So that was the two. I put those as two things, actually, because I see things differently now. It's made me, if ever I come into a situation where a goal I want to reach now, or an issue I've got, I won't, whereas before, like if it was a goal and I felt uneasy with it, my barriers would go up and that was it. I can't do that. But now it's taught me to just take a breath, step back, and look at it and think, well, what's stopping me? And then learning to move forward rather than to just stay stuck, or to look at the past and think, oh no, I can't do that now because of what's gone on in the past. It's given me the confidence to do that. And I think that's one of the biggest things, the confidence in myself and the belief.
And I think a lot of that is just seeing, like, you don't even need a physical shield. You just see potentially where you're becoming fearful, and understanding. I think this is the insight, and understanding what that fear is, and is it true or not. If a dog was chasing you, then you don't get an imaginary shield up, you run.
No, exactly. I mean, and when you say sort of, and that was another thing actually, when you say, like, is that fear true or not, I think a lot of it is like, everyone's guilty of doing, there's a lot of self-talk in your head, and we are programmed as humans to listen. It's easier to listen to the negative talk than the positive talk, sort of thing, and it's more, the negative talk happens more. So it's learning to realize what is actual fear, as you say, or what is my own, I can't explain it really, my own perception of fear, because maybe I'm just feeling vulnerable to take that next step.
So this book I'm reading at the moment, called The Power of Now, it just so I always use this, so the analogy of the plumb bob, when that's centered, so when you're in a centered point, we both have a common interest in yoga, that centered point. So when you come from that point, which is now, so this talks about time. So us now, if I sat here for a while and just stopped, you would start going off, and we could be thinking, well, this might look uncomfortable.
Yes.
on the video. So what happens is you start stretching an unconnected thought where it's not really got any relevance. So connected thought would be like, Matt, why aren't you talking? You know, you're asking the truth. Why aren't you talking? Are we waiting for something?
Yes. What's he going to do?
What's he going to do? Or if it's unconnected, this is like a what if. What if we look like a pair of wallies because we're sitting there?
Yes. What are people going to think?
Yeah, and this is where the connection and not connection. It's funny because last week, and I think mindsets like fitness, that you're going to get disgruntled, you're going to get out of breath, but it's how quick your recovery rate is. So mine's pretty quick. It's quicker than it is fitness wise. Should have seen me after my run this morning, but it's quick. So we did. So I sort of posted, and I got the date wrong, but I posted a webinar I was going to do, which I've been working on, similar to the Waterman Can stuff on mindset, but for mattjeffrey.com, and I posted it up, and I was going to do a webinar. Now I upgraded to Pro on Zoom, thinking that I can do these webinars where people can come on. I won't see anyone. I'll just present. And then it got to Saturday, and I'd done a dummy run, and you can't do that. It's like this, where you've got everyone watching you. And I was thinking to myself, well, I hadn't posted it earlier. I hadn't advertised it properly. So I knew there wasn't going to be a lot of people on, but I didn't want it to be like one person, and I'm talking to everyone like there's one person.
Yeah.
And also people can unmute themselves, and I didn't want mates dropping on. And what I started doing was, when I realised that it couldn't be this thing that I was protected and I couldn't see everyone, I started to think, well, I don't know if I want to do it now. Because what if, I started thinking, what if my mates came on, they were like, oh, Matt, there's no one here. and what actually happened was, the only person that logged on was Sharon, because the link was wrong with the time. That's what I've told myself anyway.
Yeah.
So I run through it anyway, but it was funny. When I talk about dancing without music, it was funny how it would have been all right if you had 50 people on. But if you had one person on, like that's not all right. The perception of it, and the truth was actually, it was like a run through for me. And what I thought I could do on Zoom, I actually couldn't. So I wanted to drop out of this and go onto a presentation, and then drop back into me talking. But it doesn't happen like that on Zoom, because you just come into your picture and mine's up there. So suddenly I start seeing the people that are in there. And if there's no one in there, I look like a right Wally. But it was funny how this, it's like an expectation, how you think things should be versus the truth of them. And if I don't do this, so when I talk about dancing without music, like you'll dance if you're probably 1 pissed, 2 the right songs on, 3 you're in the right place.
Unless I'm cooking.
Yeah, but you're cooking on your own. If everyone was round, so in the right circumstance, we can all dance like no one's watching. That's the phrase, isn't it? But if there's nothing there, like if people aren't coming on your webinars, if people aren't liking you, if people aren't like there's nothing.
Yes.
Then how do you still operate if you're waiting for these, you know, these things to come in to make it okay? And that, I think that's a lot with that narrative and that perception, especially with the sensitivity. Well, what if they laugh? What if Matt does just sit there and...
Yeah, he makes me look like a fool.
Which it only feels bad when you step ahead in time and think about what people are going to think.
Yeah.
If you just sat present now and didn't think.
Yeah. But it's weird, because if you had, like before all my coaching and stuff, and before this amount of time had passed, if you had said to me, I want you to do what we're doing today, I would have been like that emoji, sort of like, and just thought, no, my mind would have raced ahead. But when you asked me, I'm not going to lie, I did feel a little bit nervous, but I was just thinking, no. And it was like, then I used yoga techniques as well, just sort of concentrate on breathing and just be like, no, just don't race ahead. Just, you're having a chat with a friend. That's how I looked at it.
And that's the truth of it. And that's the truth of it. The racing ahead bit. So going back to boxing, I've thought before about doing another white collar, and if I think about it,
please don't.
if I think about it, I can get anxious about like stepping in the ring again, all the stuff, the sparring I've got to do. But if I think about that, it's the time traveling aspect of it.
Yes.
It's not now, and this is where I think yoga is good because it brings you back to now. Because you don't think on a yoga mat generally, you're breathing into your body and you're letting go.
Yeah, I don't think people understand sort of those that really enjoy yoga and get into yoga, like yourself and me. I can have like the day from hell, but then I'll go down to my yoga class, and once I'm in there, everything else, I just unpack it all, leave it at the door. I can pick that up when I come out. That hour and a half is just for me, and and that's why I love it so much, because you're just
it's
there.
It's getting back to referencing them, because the techniques in themselves engineer you to not think. So coming back to that thought, and you're just present. When you're present, it all becomes easier. Like I've been stressed out before, and I've just slowed in and stopped, and then suddenly I can feel a smile come out, because I think I'm not.
You feel your shoulders drop, and because it's like a weight's been lifted, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that shifting out, and from a centre point, you still need to list stuff that you've got to do. Like, what have you got to do to go to yoga? Well, I've got to get my yoga mat out. And what am I going to wear? But you could then, at what am I going to wear? You could drift unconnected into, well, what might that look? What might they think?
Yes.
And that's where it becomes painful. And I think that's where, if you notice the feeling, then find the thought, because it's not connected. And when you reconnect it, like, what are they thinking? Well, one is, if I think from now and don't think, I'm not going to worry about it, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's only when I think about what they might think that it becomes painful. And two, what does it matter? The truth of it is, what's comfortable, what have I got to wear, and do they really give a shit?
Exactly.
So you start asking yourself centered questions that are proactive, rather than losing yourself in the shit of worry and stuff. What happened before? What happened after? What could happen? And that's where the pain is in it. I think that there's a lot. I like the links with yoga, gardening, and boxing and engineering, because that letting go, which is a lot of what you did, you have to do that in yoga to get to a move. You can't get in yoga. You've got to let it go. You breathe out.
Yes. You breathe into your poses, don't you? It's just you've just got to be there, and it grounds you as well. I think it just it's just wonderful.
So wicked. So anything else you want to add to what you got from coaching, or tips?
I would just say for people need to learn to treat themselves like they would others. So unless you're a really horrible person and you treat people horribly, but generally, if your friend, you wouldn't say to your friend what you say to yourself in your head. So be kind to yourself. Firstly, try not to listen to the negativity. Try to not, if you have got an uncomfortable situation, try not to rush ahead, as you say. Just take a pause, because we're all very good at, what if this happens? What if that happens? And so just stay and just deal with things as they arise, really. And just try and have more belief in yourself, which is easier said than done. But try and unpack what's making you feel like it, and what's stopping you.
It's interesting, isn't it? It sounds easy.
It does sound easy, and it's not.
Yeah, I think slowing down is in those aspects sometimes, and just seeing. One is stepping back, like you say. If you was to talk like to a 2-year-old kid or something, if you was going to say, I actually pulled up the other day next to a woman in a van, and she was screaming at her kid, saying the worst words you can think of. When I looked round, they were just about walking,
Oh Lord.
like proper toddlers. And you think that narrative starts really early from how you treat yourself. It's like coding that gets programmed in. Using the lifts as an analogy, like they all go up to 99 floors, but when you get them out, you program them in. And you go around, and if you imagine going in and looking at a 2-floor lift, knowing that could be 99 floors, but we've said, no, you're just 2.
Yeah.
Just going 2 floors. And it's all geared on the environment that it's in. There's no point going 99 floors if you haven't got 99 floors. But
no.
But that software is the thing that comes back, and how, and you learn, didn't you? How do you treat yourself is something that you generally learn or have been taught. Like manners, you'd hold the door open for for someone, or you'd teach your son, your boys to. You'd want them to, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
But you what you do yourself. It's interesting catching yourself doing that, and going to yoga. I think a lot of people that you use massage as well, you know, to take care. Or you started to, and that's that permission. When did you start getting that permission? Have you always had that, or is that something you've started doing more of, the yoga and self-care?
The yoga and I mean, yoga I've been doing for years now, so but I mean, I've always liked a bit of a pamper anyway, but again, it's just I've never, luckily for me, I've never seen I never saw it as self-care, but I've never seen sort of having a massage or a facial or going to I've seen them as the massage and facials as like little luxuries sort of thing, but I've never thought, oh, I don't deserve them, thankfully, and stuff like that. But I've never looked at them as well as self-care, but they are. They are a form of self-care. And yoga, I just happened to, a friend went and invited a few of us along, so it wasn't something that I looked at, and I did think, oh God, yoga, and we're going to be a tree and stuff like that. I did, have preconceived ideas there, but as the years have gone on, it's a lot more than that.
I think sometimes you get, I've said to people before, like don't think I'm like a vicar, you know, just because I'm a life coach. It's like, oh, life coach. And some people say, oh, you shouldn't say that, you're a life coach. I'm like, that mean I'm nice. Just means I'm good at coaching. I have to be unkind to be able to ask the right questions. It's like, but the perception.
People coming, like people that are watching this maybe and thinking, oh, is it for me to come to see Matt? I would say that you are not, it's like if you went to a personal trainer, for example, and you've got this preconceived idea, you've never met a personal trainer before, but you think, right, okay, I'm going to go to this personal trainer and she's going to be, you know, really toner, the ultimate body and stuff, but she might be a little bit bigger than what you think, but she knows her stuff. And what I'm trying to say is, like, with people that know you and stuff, I mean, you are a character and, you know, you are what you are, but you're brilliant, and it works with the coaching because you make it easy. I think you could go to someone, a life coach that was very stuffy and it might suit you, sort of thing. But I think the way you do it, you put people at ease.
I think it's an art. I remember filling in, getting my qualification through, and part of me was like, is anyone going to ask for this? Like those pictures behind you, that wallpaper, I love it. But has anyone checked to see if that artist was qualified? It's like, I don't know. But do they move you? Does it move you? And it's one of those things. It is an art. I'm not for everyone, but I think my point was that with the coaching, it's a bit like the yoga and that permission to work on yourself. A lot of people, I think, put it off. It's something I do when I've got money, or something I do when I get time, or something I do that actually that going to the gym, it's the work, isn't it? It's the thing that unpacks.
And I think anyone thinking of coming along and thinking it's going to be easy, like as I said at the beginning, like you're just going to tell them what to do and they're going to go away and have a wonderful life, then no, it's not going to happen like that. You know, you are going to feel uncomfortable. You are maybe going to cry. You're going to laugh as well at some things. It's not all sort of doom and gloom, but you have got to put in the work.
Yeah, it's finding the work, and I still do it with me. It's constant, but I think it's like that fitness. You know, when you go in the gym and you think to yourself, "I'm pretty tough, I'm pretty good," and you go in the gym and then suddenly
I never thought that.
well, you know, you go and you've been to the gym a few times, and you go in there, and suddenly you see someone that's just another level.
Yes.
Shit.
Yeah.
I thought I was all right, because I can touch my toes now. But there's so many levels of it. I remember going on a course before, and I think I see with people now, you almost see like the inner abs. I think I've got inner abs because I've worked a lot on myself. I haven't got outer abs. I've got inner ones because I'm in a good position. But
you're protecting them.
Exactly, yeah. But the people you meet, suddenly sometimes you think that I'm in a great place, and then you see someone that's worked on themselves a bit more.
Yeah.
That's in a really great place, and it could be anything from not needing to have this and have that, and living a simple life that before I may have seen as they're not very good. And engineering, seeing the truth in actually, you know, finding a life that's by design isn't necessarily what him, her, or they have.
Yes.
It's yours.
Yeah.
And that work is finding the work in, and sometimes he's unpacking what actually
Sorry, that's my dog.
Is it?
Yeah, it's right. Richard's just turned up and she's barking now.
So what actually do you want? You know, sometimes people don't realise what is a life by design. There's so much default that you're just living by how you think you should have. You know, I remember going to school, Benenden School, and they've got this massive fireplace that they've built, but it's like a 2-story house.
Right.
I remember thinking, like, someone said build a fireplace, I would go to Home Base or John Lewis or somewhere, have a budget, and that's what I would buy.
Right.
It's not by design, it's by default. It's just because that's how much money I've got and that's what I get. But building a life by design is it's something I don't think people spend time designing.
No, definitely.
They just crack on, and this is where you find where the work is in doing the work, which is what we did with coaching. So
yeah.
But listen, it's been great chatting.
Yes, and it has been, and that's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be.
yeah, it's not too formal, is it? So
no.
All right, well, cheers. Enjoy your Sunday.
Yeah, and you, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, lovely. Cheers, Zoe.
Right. See you later. Bye.